Today, we will explore what is an integral love relationship. The first idea is that you're at the same level of consciousness development, which is shown in the left side of this personality matrix. And so if we go all the way back to our earliest memories, we were very dependent on being supported by our parents or caretakers for our survival. And also from an evolutionary human perspective, in an archaic stage, humans were in a constant struggle for survival. And so that's the infrared stage at the very bottom, number one, which we can feel when we feel in a very dangerous situation or have some health issues or just feel threatened and afraid of our life, and it's all about life and death, basically. Then the next stage emerged or is alive in us, in parts of us, when we learned language, were very little, and we had magical beliefs around what the world around us means and what certain things means. And we also felt we had certain superpowers like cartoon characters and things like that. We believed in tales and stories, and we lived in a magical, childish world. And of course, some parts still get carried into our adult life, where we have certain magical beliefs around how things work or what certain events mean to us, and the way we interpret them are sometimes not from a rational, objective level, but just from a magical make-believe level. The next level that emerges in us, and you probably have a memory of that, is when you felt you wanted to break free from your family environment. You wanted to assert yourself. You were developing more of a sense of self. You could say no and yes as a child. You could rebel. And also later in young adult life or late adolescence, you may also have broken free from your home and from the restrictions of the family surroundings and family environment. So that's the egocentric stage, which is a very important developmental stage that I know from workshops. Often people feel that they never really developed a healthy sense of that they could assert themselves powerfully. And of course, we also have the pathological sides of all of these stages, that if somebody becomes overly egocentric and self-absorbed. The next stage that emerged for most people, and that emerged in human history, is what we call the mythic stage, where we followed some rules, some roles, where we thought in right and wrong. And this is usually when we go to school or learn a profession or go to the military or join a church or join an organization that has rules, and it really helps us to get out of that egocentric, self-absorbed stage 3 and put ourselves into the service of others or a higher power or something outside of ourselves. As we know, as we go up this ladder or this spiral, there's always this being more focused on the self or being more focused on others, on the outside. The next is the rational stage, stage 5. And that's where we started to question the authorities that we were following before, and the rules and the roles and what's right and wrong. There was this like, who says so? Where is the proof? Where is the evidence? And again, instead of serving others in a higher power, there is more a shift on like, I want to pursue a good life. I want to win. I want to be successful. I want to be educated. So it's our self, the good life, pursuing goals, strategies. So that's in the 5th stage, and probably all callers and people who watch this have a memory when they enter this stage, or some people may still be in that stage 5. So in American and in all Western societies, most people are in stage 4 and stage 5. So it's like a bell curve where, few people are in the magic and archaic and egocentric stage. A lot of people are in the mythic and rational stage, and then the higher stages, there are fewer people in the higher stages. So stage 6 emerges when we questioned all these rational thoughts and realized that a lot of these ideas are constructed through culture and how we look at the world, and that everybody looks at the world in a different way. That's why we call that the pluralistic stage, that everything is relative. Everybody creates their own reality, not necessarily in a physical sense, but how we interpret what we perceive through our senses. And we realize that this is culturally conditioned through our language, through our upbringing, to our thinking. So if we change our thinking, we change our reality. It's also a stage where we go from our head more into our hearts, connect with our feelings, connect with our needs. There is an idea that all humans are equal, that all humans have the same needs and desires. They want to be loved, they want to be cared for. So it is a very caring stage. It's a very embodied stage. It's a stage that also connects with Earth and with all living things. And so it's a very holistic stage. And again, more focused outwardly around our surroundings, other human beings, love, and things like that. Then the next stage that emerged is what we call the integral stage. And it's a little unfortunate in a way that we call it integral, because as we will see later, I know now that people can have an integral relationship at any level. And even though we call it integral relationship, it can be at a pluralistic, at a rational, at a mythic, at an egocentric, and even on a magical level. And all these stages all live inside of us. And so we're not constantly just at one level. And I will say a little bit more about that shortly. So the integral level really represents a paradigm shift. We call that often second tier. So the first 6 stages we call first tier. The higher stages we call second tier. And the integral level is the first level where we see all these previous levels. So we can connect with people and relate to and with people at all these previous levels by speaking their language, by understanding their worldview, by meeting them where they are. And so that was the idea in my first book, Integral Relationships, that men can basically learn to meet women at whatever stage and state and energy they're in by understanding this personality matrix. And then the 8th level that we have here, the turquoise transpersonal level, is when there is more of an embodiment of all these previous stages. So integral can sometimes be somewhat removed and be sort of like a passive observer and meeting other people where they are, but not revealing very much of itself. And so it can be seen as arrogant and manipulative. And the turquoise stage, the transpersonal stage, we break out of that. It becomes also more evolutionary. We become more involved. Terry Patton just wrote a book about activism. So we just become more embodied again. We're not only talking about these stages and understanding them, but embodying them. And we become more active in kind of like a hands-on way, and which also opens, of course, the door to a whole different quality of relationships. So the main point here that I'm making is with equal partner, I mean that a partner is at our level of consciousness.